Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for this session in the Education USA LLM webinar series. I'll give you a very brief introduction about Education USA. For those who don't know who we are, Education USA is a global network of advising centers from the U.S. State Department. There are more than 430 advising centers globally in more than 175 countries and territories. We are your official source on U.S. higher education. We work with higher education institutions, students, governments, and NGOs. We offer unbiased, accurate, comprehensive information about the full range of accredited U.S. higher education institutions. Our services include information sessions, group sessions, and one-on-one sessions. We also offer workshops and webinars, such as this webinar series, and we also offer resources and guides for U.S. studies. You can go to educationusa.state.gov for more information and also to find your advising center that is closer to you. Today, we are going to have 5 fabulous institutions. Here today is the New York University School of Law, NYU, the University of Georgia School of Law, University of Minnesota School of Law, University of Pennsylvania, UPenn Carey Law School, and Vanderbilt University Law School. The topic of today's session is the LLM application process, LSAC, the Law School Admission Council, and financing options for your LLM. Please remember that we will have this session all together, and then you can go to the breakout room, but you will need your link to go to the university. So we will share those links in the chat. Please copy and paste in your computer somewhere in a document, all the links, so you have the information to go to the breakout session. Also remember that today is the 6th day of a 10-day event. We are still, we will still have 4 more days with institutions and other topics. So please check the whole agenda. And again, thank you for being here today with us. And we'll give the floor to our presenters.
So thank you for joining us today to learn more about the LLM application process. My colleagues and I will be covering a variety of topics that highlight the application process as well as the benefits of graduate study in the US. Next slide, please. So these are the topics we'll be covering, and my colleagues and I will each speak a little bit to give you some information. And on to the next slide, please. So my name is Lauren Goslin. I'm the Senior Associate Director for Graduate Admissions at NYU School of Law. And on the next slide, I'll give an overview of our program. So this is a list of specializations we offer at NYU. We have a lot of options to choose from, and New York is one of the world's most dynamic cities, a capital of business and legal practice, and home to countless international institutions and NGOs. You'll find NYU Law nestled on the southwest corner of historic Washington Square Park in the charming Greenwich Village neighborhood of downtown Manhattan. Village life offers a refuge from the concrete canyons and skyscrapers that dominate the rest of the island. As a brief overview of the LLM at NYU, our graduate division offers 9 different LLM degrees, the JSD, a doctoral level credential, and some part-time and online options for full-time tax practitioners. Students who pursue a specialization can take certain classes in that area while also having some flexibility to pursue interest in other fields. And those enrolled in our general program choose classes that match their intellectual interests. At NYU, we strive to create a learning community in which the law is explored from a variety of perspectives. And we also take an interdisciplinary perspective to study at NYU with other disciplines like economics or sociology. So it's true that at many American law schools, international students share a classroom with the JD students, most of whom are from the US. At NYU, the difference is the importance we place on the study of US law and legal thinking from a comparative and global perspective. And then on to the next slide, please. So now I'm going to talk about what is the Law School Admission Council, LSAC, and all applicants to our programs, all of my colleagues here and I, require LSAC. So whether you're applying for the LLM, JSD, or another graduate program, you have to apply online and use the application services available from the Law School Admission Council, also called LSAC. Next slide, please. So what does LSAC do? The LLM and other law programs credential assembly service simplifies the application process by centralizing the collection of application materials and distributing them in an electronic report to all law schools to which an applicant applies. Applicants benefit from using this service by submitting the required materials only once to LSAC, and a university's receipt of the required materials electronically from LSAC allows for quicker processing and more efficient processing for all applicants. It also reduces the amount of paper involved in the application process itself. Applicants to all LLM programs must register for an LSAC account and use LSAC's credential assembly service. All applicants must purchase the document assembly service. Some universities also require applicants with foreign education credentials to purchase the International Credential Authentication and Evaluation Service. You should verify what services are required for the universities you plan on applying to. Next slide, please. There are 2 parts to the credential assembly service, including the electronic application service, the document assembly service, and the international transcript authentication evaluation service, which I mentioned in the last slide. There are no fees for the following services. Transcripts are sent once for processing. Letters of recommendation are also sent once for processing. English proficiency exam scores are sent once, and you can create an account to search for and save a list of the law schools and programs that interest you. And you can also create a candidate referral service, a CRS profile that law schools can use to contact you about their programs, so you can opt in to receive information about programs all across the country in the US. The electronic application service allows you to complete and transmit your applications online, and individual law school application and report fees are not included in this one, so you do have to factor in the various fees of the LSAC service. Document assembly service forwards your processed documents to the law schools you're applying to. And the International Transcript Authentication and Evaluation Service is for applicants educated outside the US who require authentication and evaluation of their foreign records. For example, NYU does require this service of our LLM applicants. Again, you should make sure to verify the requirements of all the universities you attend to apply to. And it has to be purchased in conjunction with the document assembly service. So just pay attention to the services at LSAC and what you need and do not need to include. Next slide, please. All applicants are strongly advised to purchase the required services 4 to 6 weeks in advance of their first application deadline and to supply your required materials to LSAC as early as possible. Only the applicant can complete the application form and author their own attachments and to the online application. Additionally, all applicants should comply with relevant instructions for each school they're applying to, and also when requesting academic credentials, the English language test scores, and recommendation letters required for the schools you're applying to. And students or applicants may use approved organizations such as Fulbright, EducationUSA, to advise them on the application process, but otherwise it is the applicant themselves who's preparing their application. Next slide, please. So do your research. Make sure to research the various LLM programs you're applying to so you can note all the deadline and application requirements. Each LLM program has different deadlines. Some LLM programs may have an early application deadline or a separate application for scholarships. But the first step will be to create an account with LSAC and arrange to send your materials to LSAC, your academic credentials, as soon as possible to allow time for LSAC to process them. And your credentials should be mailed directly from your university to LSAC. And you can work with LSAC if there's any issues because of the pandemic. And for requesting letters of recommendation, note how many are required. Note if you're going to use any of the same letters for the applications for the different law schools. And register for an English language proficiency exam as soon as possible if it's applicable in your situation. And also verify what you'll need. My colleague will talk about this a little further in the next segment. And do plan ahead as well for your English language proficiency exam. Apply to your law schools electronically, purchase your law school records, and you don't have to wait for LSAC to finish processing your credentials in order to submit your application because the processes are separate. So you will know that the schools received your application. As soon as your credential report is ready, it will be sent along to all the schools you've applied to. And you can also monitor the credentials with LSAC and when they've been sent. So you can monitor it at the LSAC level and you can also monitor it with the schools. Next slide, please. So now I'm going to turn the presentation over to my colleague from Vanderbilt Law School who will go into more details about the application requirements and documentation.
Hi everyone, I'm Cynthia Coleman, Director of LLM Admissions at Vanderbilt Law School, which is located in Nashville, Tennessee. And I would like to tell you a little about the required standardized tests and required documentation for your LLM application. But first I'd like to just quickly tell you a few fast facts about Vanderbilt's LLM program. Next, please. So Vanderbilt's program is known for its small LLM class size and faculty of leading scholars in every area of the law. We offer a general LLM degree, which allows students to tailor their course of study according to their interests and careers. And we offer a specialized LLM in law and business, where you would earn a certificate in law and business in addition to the LLM degree. Both options offer the coursework required to qualify for the New York bar. And one of the best things about our LLM program is that it's located in Nashville, Tennessee, which our students love. It's known as Music City, USA, and it's a very sophisticated and friendly city. And the law school is located on one of the most beautiful university campuses in the world. Next, please. So let's go on to discuss the required standardized tests. Next, please. Most law schools require applicants for whom English is not their native language to take a standardized test, such as the TOEFL or the IELTS. If your legal education or undergrad education was conducted entirely in English, some law schools in the U.S. will waive the English proficiency requirements. It's your responsibility, the ability to identify which schools accept which test. Each school sets its own standard required minimum scores, and LSAC will accept score reports from either the TOEFL or IELTS exam and include your scores in your CAS report. Next, please. The TOEFL is the most widely accepted test, and the internet-based TOEFL is the one that most schools accept. Many schools look not only at the overall score, but at the sub-scores, the breakdown scores for listening, speaking, writing, and reading to ensure that all levels are high. So for example, if you have an overall score that's high, but one of your sub-scores is low, you might consider working on that area and retaking the test. Again, you can have TOEFL, your scores reported directly to LSAC using their institution code of 8395 for the TOEFL. And we do recommend registering early, as was said earlier, and checking the registration fees. They vary by country. And if you look at the ETS website, you'll find updates on testing centers available and closures due to COVID-19. Next, please. Many schools accept the internet-based TOEFL, and if you accept the special home edition, you'll need to check with each school you're applying to see if they accept the TOEFL home edition. This was an option created last year for students affected by test center closures as a result of COVID-19. And this offers the option to take the test at home on your own computer. And again, it's not accepted by all schools, so you'll need to check on that. Next, please. Many schools accept the International English Language Testing System test, which we call IELTS. It assesses 4 areas of your skills, and again, the score in each separate area is very important. The scores range from 1 to 9, and many schools have a minimum score requirement, so check with the school you're applying to. And again, the IELTS is not accepted by all schools. Next, please. And there's a new test that I believe became available last year. It's called the Duolingo test. It's not widely accepted, but is accepted by some schools. I think of our 5 panelists, it's accepted by 3 of our schools and not accepted by 2. So this test is offers the option to take the test online anywhere, and it's much easier to register for it. The score is not reported directly to LSAC, so you'd have to check with the schools that are accepting it on how to get your score reported, and it's very affordable. So this may be an option for you depending on where you plan to apply. Next, please. Required documentation. I think all schools that you apply to will require official copies of your transcript and academic records. The transcripts should show the subjects you studied, your marks and your final exam marks. If you're currently in your final year of law school, you should submit your transcripts for all your studies so far, and then after graduation, but prior to your enrollment in the LLM program, you'll be required to submit an official final transcript. Also required is proof of your graduation or professional license in the form of a certificate, diploma, or degree certificate. Schools will require a certified copy of the original, and all documents must be translated. Translations must be literal and certified. And there's a very helpful list on LSAC's website that shows the name of the exact documents required depending on which country you're from. So I encourage you to check that out. Next slide, please. And we've already discussed about the CAS and International Transcript Authentication and Evaluation Service. So I won't linger on that, but My guess is that most all law schools require that you use the CAS service. Not all require the ITAES, but Vanderbilt requires both, and we believe it makes the application process much easier for you and for the schools that you're applying to. I believe that's all for me, so I will turn the program over to my colleague. Next slide, please. At University of Minnesota.
Thanks, Cynthia. Hello, everybody. I'm Hannah Keeter. I'm the Assistant Director of International Programs at the University of Minnesota Law School. Really quickly, before I get into my content of the presentation, we are located basically in the middle of the country, right just south of Canada. It does get cold in the winter, but with the correct clothing, everyone lives just fine. Some people really even like being outside in the winter. As you can see, it's a beautiful city. Campus is just along the river on either side. Just the law school is just minutes from downtown, 2 light rail stops away if you want to do that way. We have a general LLM with 11 different concentrations you can choose, or a business law LLM where you focus exclusively on business law. Like many of my colleagues, we have the SJD degree as well. And of course, if you earn your LLM degree at Minnesota, you will get preference for the SJD degree. The part of this presentation is much less concrete, I think, than my colleagues that were speaking before. Do you need prior work experience to get into an LLM program? No, not usually. There are probably a few schools that require it, but the vast majority of schools do not. Some might prefer that you have some, but I think most law schools want a diverse group of students in their class, some with work experience, some without, some a little younger, some a little older. It might influence some scholarship amounts that you would get, which I'll talk about a little more in a second, but it's rarely a requirement that you have worked already before you apply to the law school for the LLM program. So if you do not have work experience, that is not a problem. There are plenty of other ways to demonstrate that you have the skills, leadership skills, things like that, that you need to succeed in a law school in the US. So focusing in your personal statement on things like your academic performance, any leadership roles you had in different clubs or student organizations, those sort of extracurricular activities are a good way to make up for that lack of work experience if that applies to you. So then talking about funding, as you know, law school in the United States is expensive. That's just how it is, our education system. You have to pay for it yourself, but law schools have a lot of self-awareness and want to make sure that it's affordable for you. We want students like you who are involved and motivated and driven to do this and have this experience. So my colleagues and I here, the consideration for scholarships is basically automatic. If you apply and are admitted, you are considered for a scholarship. It's usually merit-based and holistic. So that means there isn't a rubric of if you have this GPA and this amount of work experience, you get this amount of scholarship. It's a full picture of you as an applicant and what you're going to bring to the LLM cohort. And then the admissions committee will determine your scholarship amount on that. Less common is need-based. So if you have some sort of extreme circumstance with your family or something, and you think you need more scholarship, you can mention that in your personal statement, or some schools have specific need-based scholarships, but that is less common. Some schools also require an extra essay or some sort of extra interview for some specific scholarships, but generally it's automatic, holistic, and not any extra work for you. There are other ways to finance your education, of course. It's rare that LLM students would get a full ride, their full tuition covered, so you will need to find some other ways to pay for the rest of that, things like living expenses, that sort of thing. Be creative, be thorough, leave no stone unturned, we say, which means think of everything you possibly can and research that. EducationUSA has Fulbright scholarships you can apply for. Different local governments have scholarship opportunities like Colfuturo, Becas Chile, things like that. We also always recommend that our Latino students look into the Organization of American States Row Fund. That is a scholarship just for students from Latin America studying in the US. We also have students get creative with asking their family and friends to help if they need that, or different local organizations that want to create relationships and establish sort of goodwill between their country and the US, and might have other opportunities for you as well. So ask Education USA, ask the schools you're applying to, and you'll figure it out, I'm sure. And with that, I will turn it over to Elise.
Hi, good evening. Thank you, Hannah. I'll talk for a little bit specifically about Penn Carey Law, and then talk about the LLM experience and how the LLM really is an investment in your future. So at University of Pennsylvania, which is an Ivy League school situated in Philadelphia, we're on a beautiful campus. Here's a picture of it in the evening of the law school in Philadelphia, which is the 5th or 6th largest city in the US. We're located south, about 1 or 2 hours south of New York, depending on your mode of transportation, and about 2 or 3 hours north of Washington, DC. We offer a general LLM with a very flexible curriculum. You really pick what you would like. We now offer a couple of concentrations, but everyone does the general LLM. We're a relatively small program with about 115 students per class. And a couple of things we do that are a little bit different is we have a 5-week, 5-credit summer program or preterm program that is required for all LLMs, and it's limited to our LLMs. And during that time, you take a foundations in US law, US legal research and writing, and then that really prepares you to be taking all your classes alongside your JD upperclassmen for your fall and spring semester. Also, 4 of those 5 credits apply for the New York Bar if that's something you're interested in. We also do a lot of sort of team building and activities, so you really get to bond with your fellow LLMs from around the world, usually people from 30 to 40 different countries before you join the rest of the law school. And the other thing that's a little bit unusual for us is that we have the opportunity for a joint certificate with Wharton, which is the business school at the University of Pennsylvania. About half our students do it. Very popular program taught at Wharton by Wharton faculty that you're able to do at the same time as your LLM. It's specifically for our LLMs, and it is not available for anyone except people who are in our LLM program. It does not require a separate application process. We have more information, as I'm sure our colleagues do, on our website. So let's move on to something that more onto the next slide. So, as I said, the LLM is an investment in your future, and my colleague Laura, after me, will talk a bit more about some specific ways in which your value increases to your future employers. But there's a few things about the U.S. law school experience, both inside and out, which make it unique and different from what you've experienced in your home country, and is part of the reason that it is pricey. So the academics are incredibly rigorous and engaged, and it's unique in its approach and rigor. In terms of the approach, there's sort of 3 things you want to think about for U.S. legal education. The focus is on critical thinking as opposed to learning specific laws. Number 2, there's intense engagement by both students and faculty. And third, the practice of law is seen as something that's interdisciplinary. So to go through these a little bit, U.S. law schools typically don't focus on learning specific laws, but instead really teach you how to think like a U.S. lawyer, to build those analytical skills, to be able to look at a problem from many different angles and perspectives. And one way that we achieve this in the U.S. is through having classes taught by the Socratic method. So that's as opposed to what you may have experienced, in large lecture halls, where you can sit there, you can come or not, you can sit there, you can take notes or get your friends' notes. That's not what it's like in a Socratic class. The learning is an active endeavor. The professor will call randomly, or what we call cold call, on students and ask very difficult hypothetical questions that don't necessarily have a correct answer, but really just challenge students to think. As a result, the students really prepare for class. You will be doing your reading in a way so that you feel that if you're called on, you're not going to look bad. So there's an engagement with the material, and you're learning not just from the professor, but from each other. And even in like kind of a smaller seminar class that's not necessarily taught by a Socratic method, the expectation is that you will have read the materials closely and that the conversation is going to be led by faculty, but there'll be a lot of student engagement and dialogue. So, and in any case, you're just, the expectation is you're thinking critically and rigorously. Faculty at US Law School regularly hold office hours. There's opportunity for individual meetings to talk about the materials, about things that you're interested in. Law schools in the US often set up events so that students can get to know law faculty, and it's not unusual, even though the LLM program is only 1 year long, for LLMs to develop lifelong relationships with the faculty that they've learned from during their LLM. And in addition, in the US, and I think Lauren talked about it at NYU, and we do it through the Wharton program, and many universities, you can take classes outside the law school, or at the very least, the faculty increasingly in US law schools are not just law professors, but they have PhDs in related fields like economics, sociology, philosophy, medicine, and their scholarship draws on many disciplines. You know, so, and okay, so that's sort of the first point. Moving on to the second point, hopefully I'll be a little quicker here. We provide tremendous resources for our students. We're very student focused, and the resources that are available to you at US universities will be really a pleasant surprise when you come to the US. Our campuses tend to be really beautiful, really well cared for. There's lots of athletic facilities, student housing, you know, wonderful libraries that are extremely well staffed with helpful librarians. You know, most schools will have folks who are specifically there for LLMs to help them with their career counseling, with any kind of problem you might have, any kind of need we want to have. In the US, the expectation is that there's going to be some sort of student service to help you, to guide you through your visa process, etc. So, you know, and in addition, just the amount of activities that go on a campus, the amount of speakers, the amount of student-run events are just, you know, it's like drinking from a fire hose, as they say. You can't really do anything. You can't really do everything, but you can, you know, meet often world famous people who come as speakers, and there'll be a reception. So you can go up and have an opportunity to get to know all sorts of people. Law schools in the US also have an incredible amount of co-curricular opportunities, things like journals, moot courts, lots of clubs, everything from kind of like soccer clubs and the knitting club to like more serious student organizations that get involved in providing legal services or hosting symposium. So, and there's also, most students do take advantage of the opportunity to travel while they're here in the US, to go during vacations or long weekends, to travel within the US, and often will take advantage of the, you know, the culture of the city that they're in, whether you're in Nashville or, you know, in Minnesota, New York, in Georgia, you know, going to local sporting events, going to restaurants, cultural events, all sorts of things. There's really a lot of opportunity to engage in the community that you're in, and also doing pro bono work with the local community, local bar associations. And this really segues into my next slide, which is about networking. So this is, you know, the relationships that you build during your LLM year last a lifetime, and that's part of the investment, and they're going to enhance your personal life and your professional life going forward. Your fellow LLMs, you'll travel to see them, you'll go to their weddings. They, along with the JDs and other people that you meet during your time, will also be professional contacts for the rest of your career. So you, and as I said, like, most bar associations have events. A lot of local lawyers really enjoy getting to know international students. And all of our schools in the US, one of the things we do is we have very strong alumni networks. For one thing, we raise money from our alumni, which isn't as prevalent around the world, but there's always a lot of robust programming through our university and law school alumni associations that you can avail yourself of once you graduate, to be connected with people you went to school with, and also people who went to school before and after you, with events and reunions in the US, and often even events in your home country or in other countries that you may visit. So, with these, sort of limitless opportunities, it's important to think about your LLM as an investment in your future. So with that, I'm gonna pass the baton on to Laura, who I think is gonna, we're going to skip this slide in the interest of time. We'll go right to Laura, who's going to pick up on some of these themes.
Hi, that's me, Laura Tate-Coggle. I am the Associate Director for International Professional Education at the University of Georgia School of Law. We call University of Georgia UGA. And I just included this little map here so you can get an idea where we are. We're in a typical American college town, except we think it's a very special American college town, with the downtown's right next to the campus, and it's a great environment for learning about American lifestyle and American university life. We're also close to Atlanta, which is an international trade hub. We have many connections there in the courts and in the law firms there, and just a short flight away to Washington, D.C. and New York. So it gives you an idea of where we are in the southeastern United States. And on the next slide, I will tell you a little bit about the university. That's our law school there, and we have some fall colors now. The University of Georgia is the oldest land-grant university in the country. It was founded in 1785. So we have some beautiful historical buildings. We've had an LLM program for many years, and we keep it small. It's a very small program. The LLM students come from many different countries, so it's always very diverse. And they have a lot of choices about what courses they want to take. Some of our students do more research-oriented LLM. Some of them are more oriented towards business. Some of them are preparing for a US bar exam. But the students primarily take classes with the JD students and get to know their American colleagues of the future. We have a lot of practical training courses such as mediation or business negotiations, or courses where you practice deals, simulate trials, that sort of thing. And we are very proud of our mentoring and professional development program. As I said, many students prepare for a US bar exam. In Georgia, foreign lawyers are permitted to apply to take the bar exam. And we have a joint LLM MBA degree with the Terry College of Business that takes 2 years. So if anyone's interested in that, they can talk to me after the presentation. And our students always love the mild climate. We have 4 seasons, but very warm winters and the low cost of living. And we're also known for our scholarship funding. The law school has been named the best value in legal education for 2 years in a row. And I think that's partly because we're able to offer a lot of scholarships to students. And on the next slide, I'll tell you a little bit about what you can do after the LLM. If you are an international student visa holder, you would be eligible for optional practical training. If you have a Fulbright award, you would be eligible for academic training, but they're broadly similar programs where you can obtain off-campus work authorization that allows you to work in the major field of study, so in this case law, for a maximum of 12 months. So this means that when you complete your LLM, you have the opportunity to stay in the United States and work without it's a much less complicated procedure than obtaining a normal work visa. So this is just especially for international students. The work authorization is called the Employment Authorization Document, and it's issued by the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. You don't really need to think about this now, but it's nice to think about this opportunity that you can complete your academic work and then try to do something practical to cement your experience with U.S. law. Students apply in the spring, normally at the academic year, or 90 days before the completion of their program. And then they'll receive a new I-20 immigration document that will allow them to stay in the United States longer. And they need to work a minimum of 20 hours of work per week. But it's possible to have more than one placement, so you could combine 2 internships, for example, when you do optional practical training. And you're allowed to have up to 90 days of unemployment, so you can be approved for optional practical training, and you have some time. If you don't have a job offer right away, you still have some time to look for one. And this employment can be paid or unpaid employment. Next slide. The other thing I wanted to talk about now is the increased value that the LLM can bring you at home. My colleague talked a little bit about networking, and that's definitely true, that part of the benefit of the LLM program is meeting your other foreign colleagues so that you develop a global network, but also the American law students who will be your American colleagues in the future. But an LLM is always a valuable professional credential. We've seen that with a lot of students. We've had students come who wanted to change the career direction, and they did the LLM to gain more specialization in a particular area. I even had a prosecutor who came and changed her field to corporate law and is now a partner in a law firm. So for some people, it's getting that new expertise. They have the opportunity to spend time developing that. Or for some people, it's just gaining more expertise in an area they've already worked in. We had an employment lawyer who came, and also with the new experience he had understanding U.S. employment law, went back to his home country and received a promotion there. With the legal environment in the U.S., can improve your marketability to U.S. clients if you want to work in the international sphere. And of course, you can gain a global network, as we were saying. And it's very true that the alumni are often very willing to help students. So in alumni networks for LLMs, they remember their own experience coming to the US for a year and have a certain desire to help the students who come along after them. So that's great. And you should not underestimate the importance of the intercultural professional competence that you gain. I think it's not until students have been here for a year and have gone through the LLM that they really understand a lot of the differences in the legal cultures in the US and other countries. And that really is a great intellectual experience for understanding more about the law and how the law can work. But it also can be very valuable in their careers because they have that ability to move between different legal cultures. So part of that's just, as my colleague was saying, there's a very different academic culture here, and knowing about that can be very valuable. And not least important is the chance to improve your legal English. There's nothing like spending a full year immersed in English and the particularities of legal English to really make you expert in that area. Some students do engage in research or write thesis-length papers that can lead to a doctoral program in their home country or an academic career in the long run, publications and that sort of thing. Some benefit a lot from experiential learning, for example, doing an externship in the courthouse here, working under a judge. And many of our students like to prepare for a US bar exam. So even if they're not planning to practice law in the US, that can be a benefit if they have US clients abroad. And in many countries, it's just considered a very important professional credential for them. So that gives you a little bit of an overview of how the LLM can increase your professional credibility at home, but also you can see it's also a fun experience. The students really enjoy getting to know each other and learning about each other's cultures, and it's also a great experience for learning about your career and how to go about your job search, because all of our universities have career development offices that assist students with understanding how to go about looking for a job in the international or the local market. All right. And we have another slide. Okay, so we're going to go on to our questions. I wasn't sure if you had a question slide. So the Education USA people have copied and pasted links. So you have access to the breakout sessions now. I know there's some questions in the chat, and we can all take note of those and answer them as well. And I look forward to talking to people in my University of Georgia Zoom room.
Would you like to take some questions now, or you would like to go to the breakout sessions? We have a few, maybe we have about 5 minutes to answer some questions, or should they go to the breakout rooms? Elise, we cannot hear you, you are muted.
Yes. Either way, I see there are a couple of questions that are directed specifically to my school, and I'm happy to answer them now or in the chat room, either way. Maybe they asked who's taking Duolingo. Maybe we could say that I think Lauren and I are not taking Duolingo, but the other schools here are.
Oh. NYU only takes the TOEFL or the IELTS?
Same here, and we are taking the at-home versions with sort of a caveat that it's a little bit provisional. We're sort of seeing how the tests go, and if we may need some additional things depending on sort of how the year works out. But we're taking them at least initially. I don't know if that's sort of similar to you guys at NYU.
For the home edition, we're taking it kind of provisionally, if it's not possible to take an in-person exam at a test center, you can submit a home edition test score, and then we may require that you take an in-person exam as soon as test centers open up. If you have to take a test late after our deadline, we will also make a note of that and note it on your file. So it just depends on the country situation.
And I see also a question from Fabiano here, which is whether, you know, what type of degree is required. And that's going to depend school by school, whether a school will take a bachelor's of laws looking for something more from each country. That's definitely a school by school kind of thing, what level. You know, most places we're looking for your, you know, an undergraduate degree in law from Latin America, but it's going to depend on the jurisdiction.
I would just say everyone puts that on their website. So if you're wondering what you need to be eligible to apply, that will be on the law school's website.
Yeah, or in a lot of cases, we find that there can be sort of subtleties that aren't addressed on our website, and although we're not willing to sort of evaluate whether you'd be accepted, we don't, you know, you have to go through the process. We will let you know if you're eligible. If you want to send an email to our general website, we can say that degree is enough to apply, or not. So
there's another question about international applications to the JD program. I know that we have international students in our JD program, so I know they're accepted, but I don't think any of us are particularly involved with JD admissions. So
Yeah,
that'd be good.
I second that too. Yeah, NYU also has international students in the JD program, but if you have specific JD questions, you should contact our colleagues in their respective JD offices. So the LSAT is for the JD program. The LSAT is not for the LLM program.
yeah, agreed.
I'm just going to address the people that are asking about the recording of this session. This will be available later, so if you register to the webinar series, you will have access to the information later. And please make sure that you copy the links to go to the sessions. If you have specific questions for any one of the presenters today, please make sure that you have the information. The suggestion is that you copy and paste in a file in your computer all the links, so you have all the information. Because once this session ends, you won't be able to access the links. So the information is in the chat. Make sure that you have the information now.
So and just, I think one last question, which was to Penn, but I think it's sort of general interest, and it's something I've talked about with Lauren's colleagues, so I think I can answer for both of our schools. You may have to ask other schools, which is, you know, because of the amount of deferrals that were granted, are we going to accept less people this cycle? Does it make sense to apply this cycle? Apply. We're not limiting the number. We are hoping to have as normal a session as possible and to figure out ways to accommodate, you know, if we have that many wonderful students, we're just going to figure out a way to make it work. And I imagine other schools may have, you know, hopefully similar, although they, you know, each school is going to be a little different. And, you know, so come visit all our rooms and ask us these kinds of questions one-on-one. We want to talk to you.
There was a general question about the bar exam too. You do need a bar exam. You do need to pass a bar exam and various other requirements to be admitted to the bar in order to practice law in the United States. Some LLMs work in areas of the law where they do not need a bar license. But beyond being admitted to the bar, you also need to comply with the immigration regulations, and you would need a work visa.
Maybe this is a question I should have a better sense of, but I think for most states that allow students who have LLM degrees to take the bar, you do not have to take or to earn your LLM in that state, correct? So in Minnesota, where my law school is, you cannot take the bar exam if you do not have a JD. So our LLM students are not able to take the LLM or the bar exam in Minnesota. Many of them go to New York or California or Washington, D.C. after they complete the LLM degree in Minnesota to go take the bar exam then. So if you want to stay in the U.S. and practice, there are lots of advantages to going to a law school and earning your LLM in the state where you want to take the bar and practice, but it's not a requirement.
So there's a question about translations for your transcripts from Giselle, and Lauren may be able to provide more about this, but it's my understanding that you must have your transcripts translated before submitting them to LSAC. Right, Lauren?
Yeah, so there's a couple of ways to do it. So LSAC requires that the official transcripts from your university are sent to them in their native language. Some universities will do an English translation for you, some will not. You can have the transcript, if it's sent in Spanish, Portuguese, sent directly to LSAC by your school, and then you can send a literal translation that you may have done yourself, as long as it's word by word, and then LSAC will, check the translation to the original. NYU requires International Transcript Authentication Service, so they'll authenticate the translation to the original transcript. Some schools may require that you get certified translations, because if you enroll at a school, they will require that your transcripts are on file with them. That's like a regulation of our state, that we have official transcripts on file, but we have the authentication that we also receive. So we'll get your official transcripts eventually from LSAC. So it depends on what schools may require, but because we do the International Transcript Authentication Service, it saves some money with the translation services, which I know can be expensive.
So I think it's time to go to the breakout session. So make sure you have your links. Thank you very much for being here, and thank you for the presenters for this wonderful information. And we'll see you in the breakout sessions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Elvira. Thank you, Mariana.
Right.